A 5-year-old child sits in a quiet laboratory room. In front of them are a few shiny coins and a bright plastic toy. Scientists are watching through a one-way mirror, and what they observe next predicts this child's adult bank account with terrifying accuracy. This tiny human is already making a choice that seals their financial destiny 30 years into the future. By the time you learn to ride a bike, your brain had already locked in its permanent blueprint for money. We like to think we are logical creatures who make smart choices. We download budgeting apps, write down goals, and promise ourselves we will start next month. Yet, 90% of these resolutions crash and burn before the first paycheck even clears. That is because you are not fighting lack of willpower, you are fighting a hardwired biological setting. By the end of this video, you will understand the exact neurological glitch sabotaging your wallet, how to bypass it using a simple visual trick, and why your brain treats your retirement self as an absolute stranger. And that last one is the reason most people never escape this trap. Let's look at why your brain hates to preserve capital in the first place. On July 23, 2018, the Cornell Chronicle published a groundbreaking piece of cognitive research. They discovered that humans possess a massive, unconscious cognitive bias toward earning. We spend an overwhelming amount of our limited daily brain power figuring out how to make money. But the moment that cash hits our account, our brain power plummets. We literally do not have the same neurological drive to protect our cash as we do to hunt it. But it gets worse when we look at how this hunting instinct is programmed during our earliest years. This brings us to a major study from the University of Michigan, co-authored by Ross School of Business professor Scott Rick. Dr. Rick and his team wanted to know exactly when our spending and saving personalities take shape. They tested children between the ages of 5 and 12, measuring their emotional responses to spending cash. What they found shocked the researchers. Children as young as 5 already had highly distinct, deeply ingrained emotional reactions to spending money. These kids had already sorted themselves into 2 rigid categories, tightwads and spendthrifts. And these childhood categories dictate how you live your life today. Think about that for a second. Before you even knew how to multiply numbers, your brain had decided whether spending money felt like pleasure or pain. If you were a 5-year-old spendthrift, spending money felt like an instant hit of excitement. If you were a tightwad, handing over a coin felt like a physical pinch. You did not choose this reaction. It was wired into your nervous system by your early environment and genetics. Decades later, you are still carrying this exact 5-year-old blueprint. But here's the part nobody talks about. Why does logic completely fail to override this ancient childhood code? Here is where the psychology of saving money gets truly weird. When researchers put adult spendthrifts into fMRI brain scanners, they watch what happened when they looked at price tags. For a normal saver, seeing a high price tag activates the insula. That is the exact same region of the brain that fires when you stub your toe or smell something rotting. It is physical distress. But for a chronic spender, that insular reaction is completely silent. Their brains literally do not feel the warning pain of losing resources. Instead, their reward centers light up like a pinball machine at the mere thought of acquisition. How can a simple spreadsheet fight a brain that cannot feel financial pain? This pain and pleasure imbalance explains why typical financial advice is completely useless. Most books tell you to budget, track your pennies, and cut out your daily coffee. But they are asking a brain wired to avoid pain to voluntarily inflict pain on itself. For a natural spender, saving money does not feel like a smart choice. It feels like slow, agonizing deprivation. Meanwhile, for a natural saver, watching a bank balance grow triggers a massive release of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. If your brain does not naturally release dopamine when you leave money in your account, you're playing a game with the deck stacked against you. But there's an even bigger neurological barrier blocking your path, and it involves a bizarre trick of human perception. Researchers from major academic institutions published a study exploring how we view our future selves. They discovered that when we think about our lives 30 years from now, our brains experience a profound disconnect. We do not see our older selves as us. Instead, our neural pathways process our future self as a completely different person. It is a stranger we have never met. This means when you decide to save for retirement, your brain feels like it is giving away its hard-earned money to a random guy on the street. The brain scans from this study prove this stranger effect with striking precision. When participants were asked to describe their current self, specific regions of their prefrontal cortex lit up. When asked to describe a stranger like a random Hollywood actor, those brain regions went completely dark. Then, the researchers asked them to think about their future self 30 years down the road. The brain scans were identical to the stranger scans. The prefrontal cortex remained completely quiet. This is why you choose the instant gratification of a new purchase today over saving. You are choosing yourself over an imposter. But how do we break this illusion? This is why popular budgeting software and financial apps fail to change long-term habits. They try to appeal to your rational mind with colorful pie charts and calculators. But your rational mind is not the one holding the credit card. The kid inside you, the 5-year-old who associates spending with survival or excitement, is the one running the show. To make matters worse, that Cornell study we mentioned earlier shows we are constantly looking for ways to earn more rather than manage what we have. We fall into the dangerous trap of thinking a higher salary will magically fix our savings problem. But will it? But this next study broke my brain because it proved that earning more actually makes the problem worse. Because your cognitive bias is heavily tilted toward earning, you put all your mental energy into getting that promotion or starting that side hustle. But when the extra money arrives, your underlying emotional blueprint does not change. The 5-year-old spendthrift inside, you simply get a bigger shovel to dig a deeper hole. You experience lifestyle creep, buying bigger cars and nicer houses, while your savings rate remains exactly at zero. If you do not reprogram the childhood baseline, more money just means bigger financial disasters. So, how do we actually fix this? The solution came from a brilliant experiment involving virtual reality and digital age progression technology. Researchers took young study participants and placed them in virtual reality headsets. Half of the participants looked into a digital mirror and saw their current teenage faces. The other half looked in the mirror and saw an incredibly realistic, age-progressed rendering of themselves at age 65. The researchers then asked both groups how they would allocate unexpected windfalls of money. The results were immediate and staggering. The group that looked their future self in the eyes saved more than double the amount of money as the other group. By looking at their own wrinkled skin and gray hair, the brain's stranger bias was instantly bypassed. The neural pathways finally connected the present self with the future self, turning a nameless stranger into a real human being who needed protection. You can use this exact psychological hack today without any expensive virtual reality equipment. Simply use a free aging app on your phone, print out a photo of your 65-year-old self, and place it directly inside your wallet or next to your computer screen. Every time you go to make an impulse purchase, you will have to look that old stranger in the eye and justify it. Another powerful tool to bypass your childhood blueprint comes from insights shared by major financial institutions like Goldman Sachs. They emphasize the importance of creating strict mental boundaries to trick our emotional brains. If you keep all your money in one checking account, your 5-year-old brain sees a single big pool of resources ready to be spent. But if you open separate, dedicated savings accounts and physically label them with emotional names, your brain chemistry shifts. Don't name an account savings. Name it Emergency Survival Fund or My Future Freedom. This simple labeling trick triggers our natural instinct to protect specific assets. Ultimately, the psychology of saving money is not a battle of logic, mathematics, or spreadsheets. It is a daily negotiation between the 5-year-old child who wants immediate comfort and the future self who needs long-term security. If you try to force yourself to save through sheer willpower, you will almost always lose to the neural pathways formed before you could even read. By using visual cues to make your future self real, and by setting up emotional boundaries around your accounts, you finally take the control away from your childhood blueprint. You stop fighting your brain and start outsmarting it. The next time you feel the urge to spend, stop and ask yourself which version of you is actually making the decision. If you want to master your mind and unlock your true financial potential, Hit the subscribe button to join us for more deep dives into the hidden forces shaping your life. Your future self will thank you.